So I need to get ready to repair these sections. Luckily we have one good section over here. Here is the finished repair part. Now let's see how we did it. Swag off-road press brake, and I made a special die and I stamped it. And then it wrinkled a little bit, so I shrank it to get it to come back in flat. And then I ran it through the Pullmax with that profile edge. And that's how I created those. And I just cut them in half and used them to create it. So it was a success, even though the shape's not right for what I need. But it worked, and I tried something. Instead of pinning it with the holes and everything, I wanted to see if it would draw the part. And it's hard to see on camera, but it actually dog-eared the corners, which from what I've been reading is a sign that it was drawing and not just stretching the part out. But it did give a nice 1/2 inch deep, and it's a nice little pan. It's just the wrong shape for me, and bottom platen isn't wide enough for this part, so the part would bow on the one short side, which I thought might happen, and that's what caused those two sides to be out of whack. But other than that, it's not a failure, but it's not 100% success either. But I learned something. I should be able to do drawing this way. Here is the corrected fixture with the extra clamps. And these are the finished pans just before they are ran in the Pullmax. Here I'm using a piece of box tubing to align all the bottoms of the features with the original parts on the truck. They're all centered up within the original features. They will get cleat-coated together. I will use cleat-coat bridge clips, some Dykem, score them so that they can be cut and seamed together, prepped for welding. Each one of the individual panels is getting joined, seamed together, cleaned up. There's a little bit of adjustment that needs to be made here or there that I'm going to have to make after it's all together. But once I do that, and that's all one piece, then I can start trimming in the lower valance part of it, the lower flange part. Here it is. I've done the rough metal finishing. I'm not great at metal finishing, but it's all pretty much within, I'd say 1/16 right now, but you can still see shrinker marks and stuff. I did cut the bottom edge and used it as a straight line so that I could run it through the Pullmax and clean up any variants that I had. And now I'm going to pull the straight edge out of the way and start making sure that all of these joints line up. Like this one needs to be moved over a little bit, but I could just move that over right now, run it back through the die and clean that up. The straight edge will remain the same, and then when I bump this over with the hammer and dolly work and bump this back where it needs to be with hammer and dolly work, the die will pull in that direction and clean it up. And once that's done, then I can start getting that bottom edge right. But there it is. Now I'm going to pull the straight edge away and I'll take another quick video. In order to do this repair, we had to make this profile right here. You can see it has a small flange, goes up radius into this panel before we have these. I made this for testing the shape of the Pullmax dies in those panels. As you can see, it's not quite right for here, but the upper side of it matches really well. So what I did is I ran a test piece through the Pullmax dies, and I ran a long piece through the Pullmax die. And I came in and I marked it. You can see my Sharpie mark. I put it in the brake and I just nudged that bottom side and tightened it up. So now it's really, really close. That's already been done to this panel. So now I had to, the last bit of recreating it was this backwards flange. So what I did is I did that in the bead roller and I just flanged it around. And I'm going to show you a quick trick for how I did it. So I have a fence set up. I have a solid lower and I'm using this 1/8 inch radius upper that I made. Now on my first pass, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this set fairly tight and I'm actually going to score the part right where that flange needs to be made. Then after that pass is when I'll start adding the 5-10 degrees and picking it up as I go. And then on my last 2 or 3 passes, instead of running it all in one direction, I'll run it backwards. And that'll help even everything out. And then I can go over to my post dolly and make sure I get the thing nice and straight. Here it is right after bead rolling. And now I'm going to planish this lower flange. And just clean up this upper flange a little bit. And I'll be ready to start test fitting. Here we are. That's all I got time for to do today. I've trimmed out and cut in my general radiuses. I'll go back in and clean them up a little bit with the file for my weld lines. I've set my bottom section and clecoed it and ready to score this line and get it all tacked together. I'll use the bridge clips. And before I score it and cut it, I'll use the bridge clips to bridge it in those spots. I'll go through and tack it every inch and weld it together just like I did these sections. But it don't look bad. Here we are, all tacked together, ready to weld it. It's another reason why I didn't finish like metal finishing this, how it's still kind of rough and needs some work on these welds, is because I still have to do stuff to this set of welds. And again, the joint is as tight as I can get it. I mean, this is an 040 filler wire, 0.040. These holes are 1/8 inch holes. You want that joint as tight as you can get it. Space is area that the material can move. And when we weld it, we're going to weld in one continuous shot from beginning to end. And what's going to happen is the distortion is going to follow me. It's going to continue to follow me. It's going to run right off the end of the panel. And then with that even heat affected zone, the weld should shrink evenly. And then it should be easier to planish out and get flat again. Here we are, nice even heat affected zone all the way down it. Now I'm going to go and planish it while it's still warm. I'm going to planish it in a planishing hammer real quick just to be fast about it. But you can see how the weld has shrank and pulled. And I'm just going to flatten that back out. That's done with the first round of planishing. And now I'll start to clean the weld up and begin metal finishing. I'm going to hit it with a file real quick and then hit it with a sander and go from there. So this section is just the initial planishing and a quick filing. This here is the same. Now down here is when I started filing and raising everything up and getting it straight. Down here, I've started to take the 80 grit and get it to where it's at an 80 grit after I'm done with the filing and hammer and dolly work. It goes into this. Then I cover it in Dykem and use 120 grit, and that's going to show me the last little things. And I can come in here with like a bullseye pick, or I may be able to just hammer and dolly them real lightly and get those last little imperfections out. Wasn't really worried about this or this because I have another weld seam that I have to finish out. But all this stuff in the middle should be done before I put this panel on it because it's going to be easier to work now. Somebody asked me about planishing. So I've put Dykem on it just to dramatize it a little bit. But you can see where our weld is nice and shiny. It's still high. And how this is pretty much right. And this here is pretty much right. So all of this area that's still purple is low. The part's supposed to be flat. You would always want to use the closest dolly that you could to the surface you're doing. Really, all I'm doing is coming in and right outside of this radius down here, I know it's still low, but I'm just using really light hammer strikes and just overlapping. And you can hear that ring. I'm not trying to stretch. I'm just trying to get it to the same elevation. And every few strikes or so, I'll just come back in with the file. So once again, right outside of that radius, you can see where this has come up. It's gotten closer, but I'm still right here. So we'll just come back in, identify that area. So right in there. Overlapping strikes, just that's what planish means. It means small overlapping strikes. You see, once again, we've cut it about in half. That little bit of area right there. So I'm just on this side of that weld, just on the downside of that weld right there. I'm going to switch to this hammer right in here. Just slowly but surely bring it up. Our file is slightly cutting down the highs, and our hammer work is bringing up those lows. You can see now we're a little bit better. So I'm going to take a cross peen now and come just below that weld and just above that weld in that area, and get that weld to sit a little bit proud. That's all I'm doing. I'm just continue to work that area where I know that it needs to be brought up. Now we've cut it down to just a few small little spots. From here, I'm just going to move on and move up into this area and just start working it this way, and then I'll come back, clean that up a little more, and work my way down. Mostly hammers and dollies, and then when I get towards the end, I'll take something like a slapper, and I'll come in and I'll just set my dolly down onto the inside. And I'll do a little bit of slapper work for the last little bit. And get that last little bit to pull up. But that's the technique I'm using. Once I was done, I did run it through the planishing hammer real quick. I just took my time, and like I said, it's just overlapping strikes all the way around down the panel, making sure you don't coin or get it cocked or anything weird. But that's it, just keep it nice and in line with the way the panel needs to move. And just did that real quick and then sanded it again. But there it is, all together in one piece. And I have a little bit of something I need to file and sand out right there, but it doesn't look bad at all. Put it onto the truck and go from there. Five pieces. It needs a little bit of work, but it ain't bad. And here we are, all joined together, ready to metal finish on the cab.